signs and symbols etched in the sand to honor pagan gods? Or, as some people believe, do they contain hidden messages aimed at ancient travelers from the stars?
These are very remarkable sculptures made by essentially moving pebbles so as to change the color tone of the desert surface. It appears that many of these patterns of lines seem as though they're oriented towards the heavens in some way. We really don't know what they were for or or how they were interpreted by the people who made them.
I think that this may be one explanation, that the Nazcans were projecting these into the sky and using them for religious and ceremonial purposes. But the Nazca lines really do constitute a mystery. No one really knows what they were for.
Like so much of the ancient world, Nazca broods silently, its secrets lost in time. Asia, ageless land of 1,000 legends. It is also a continent of intriguing mysteries. During the 1920s, while exploring northern China, famous Russian artist Nicholas Roerich wrote of a remarkable incident in the Himalayas.
On August 5th, we were in our camp, and at about 9:30, some of our caravanners noticed a huge shining oval shape flying high overhead. It came from the north at great speed, crossing our camp before disappearing into the clear blue sky. It had a bright, luminous surface, brilliant in the sun. Nicholas Roerich, Travel Diary, 1926.
In the long history of this vast and beautiful continent, has the UFO phenomenon shaped myths and stories handed down from generation to generation? A brief glance at the texts of ancient India is revealing, for here too we find the haunting presence of strange phenomena observed in the sky.
Gurkha, flying a swift and powerful Vimana, hurled a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns rose with all its splendor. The Mahabharata.
Compiled some 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, the Mahabharata is a Hindu poem written in Sanskrit. 10 times longer than Homer's Iliad and Odyssey combined, it is a saga of conflict on a cosmic scale.
The plot of the Mahabharata, which is the great epic of ancient India, has to do with an invasion of the earth by negative extraterrestrial forces. Basically, the idea was that governments of the earth were taken over by beings coming from other planets who had the desire to control and exploit the situation for their own personal benefit. The story goes on to describe how godly forces intervened, and finally there was a great battle here on the earth in which the issue was resolved and the negative forces were repelled.
Another epic poem, the Ramayana, was written more than 2,000 years ago. It too tells of conflict and conflagration in India's distant past.
The Vimana was a weapon so powerful that it could destroy the earth in an instant. It made a great soaring sound in smoke and flames, and on it sits death, the Ramayana.
Prominently featured in all these stories are strange flying devices referred to as Vimanas. What were they? Could they have been UFOs?
The Vimana is described in some detail, and its flight pattern is also described. It's quite interesting because it is very similar to the pattern of flight which is described in the context of modern UFO sightings. For example, the Vimana would move in a very abrupt zigzag fashion. It would sometimes disappear from sight.
The earth shook, scorched by the terrible violent heat of this weapon. Elephants burst into flame and ran to and fro in frenzy. Over a vast area, other animals crumpled to the ground and died. From all directions, the arrows of flame rained continuously and fiercely from the Vimanas. The Mahabharata.
They were described as flying fortresses that were used for aerial battles. They also attacked people on the ground. They sent out missiles, according to these translations, interpretations. Sort of like a modern UFO report, except war was taking place.
Could great aerial battles have been possible more than 2,000 years ago? Compelling though the stories may be, were they fact or fantasy?
I think the ancient Hindu descriptions of flying machines are probably fantasies, sort of like the Buck Rogers myths of flying rocket ships long before they really existed.
The easy way out is mythology, old science fiction, if you will. The realistic way is to say that those people were describing things that they didn't understand, but that were real. What we need is an open-minded effort to look at these things from the viewpoint of modern technology, possibly admitting that even we can't do some of the things that are described.
While many now believe that the Earth has been visited by extraterrestrials in their spacecraft, could this indeed have been possible? Reports of strange, unidentified flying objects have continued to trickle in throughout the centuries, echoing incidents in ancient times. In the 1940s, the term flying saucer had entered the vocabulary of a stunned and fascinated world. Suddenly, seemingly everywhere, the skies were filled with UFOs of every description. In the ensuing decades, UFOs were witnessed by people from all levels of society. Even astronauts saw them.
I personally believe in UFOs, and I believed in UFOs before I got into the space program. I just personally believe that there are other civilizations somewhere out there that people are traveling from. This was in the early 1950s when I was flying fighters in Germany. And these objects were coming over our base that appeared to be the same kind of formations that we fly in our fighters. On occasion, their movements were more erratic than ours, which meant they could really accelerate laterally and accelerate fore and aft more readily than we do. But we felt that they